Okay, so this next part is where I am taking the PANDA acronym from pathological demand avoidance and kind of adapting it a little bit. And by the way, the framework that I have, I'll make sure that I like put some information in the description that talks about some of the things that you can use as far as resources that are not my YouTube videos. This is a really great way for you to deal with the problem of procrastination and deadline mode and the appeal of it. Because let's be honest, when it comes to deadline mode, one of the reasons that we go into deadline mode is that we get it all done and we don't have to deal with this next part. So this next part is what I call the messy middle. So as a reminder, what is deadline mode? Let me just show you this really quickly again, also because it's kind of funny. So this is deadline mode.
Approaches without mercy, and I stare at an empty screen.
Sorry.
The deadline approaches without mercy, and I stare at an empty screen.
We procrastinated for too long, and now we suffer.
Yes, thank you for the reminder, Brain. Now can you do that thing that makes us do all the doings in the last minute?
Well, in that case, I must activate deadline mode.
Yes, deadline. Well, I'm typing again. Oh, it's like magic. Oh, oh. Ah, right. Ah. Deadline mode saves us.
Okay, so that's deadline mode. When it comes to deadline mode, one of the appeals of deadline mode is that I don't have to deal with this next part. And the next part is what I call the messy middle. The messy middle is when we are in the middle of doing the task. So the novelty of finally, I'm going to get this done. And I sit down and I'm in the like, let's do it, right? When you're in deadline mode, your adrenaline is so high, your cortisol is so high, your noradrenaline is so high that you kind of lose focus, right? You're in a hyper focus state. Like time goes away. And so you don't have to deal with the middle part of this. This is why a lot of ADHD kids don't like doing rough drafts. They're like, that's dumb. Why do I have to do that? I'm just going to sit down and write the whole essay. And then after I do the whole essay, then I can go back, right? And I can look at what the teacher told me and I can adjust for the next essay that I have to do because we get into this state of high stress, right? So it also kind of has to do with our understanding of mindfulness, like being in the moment. When we are in the middle of the task, the messy middle of a task, it is a tension of attention. Okay. We can't be like super hyper focused where we're just like everything in our brain is buzzing and the cortisol is going and we're like in a flow state, right? We also can't be the other side of this particular pendulum swing, which is just like the I have checked out and I'm in loading mode, I'm doom scrolling, or I'm just zoning out, or I'm like staring at nothingness and I'm just not here, right? Completely checked out. So our brains like to be in the state of either hyper focus, where the feedback loop is immediate, or zero focus at all. I am not in reality. I'm like completely away from what the world is. Both of those are states of avoiding the now, the present, right? Which is hilarious because also the other thing that we say about ADHD is that it's either now or not now. So there's some irony in the fact that we don't deal well with mindfulness, but also there's only now and not now. So the messy middle. The messy middle is when you're in the middle of a task and it's not brand new, I'm starting the task, and it's not hyper focus, I finally got the task done reward state. It is, this is boring and I don't want to do it. And so hyper focus cortisol deadline mode allows us to avoid that because this messy middle part doesn't happen. Okay. But if you want a different pathway, and again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because oftentimes we do these states of fight and flight and fawn and freeze because we're in survival mode. And if you have learned that this is the only way that you can survive and you don't want to feel differently and you don't want a mindset shift, then nothing I say in this video is going to change your mind about that. You have to choose, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want come November for me to be like, I hate this and I hate everything and I hate all of you and I'm going to flip the table and I don't care about my grade and I don't care about my relationship and I don't care about my house, right? That state of emotional dysregulation that causes us to make bad choices. If you want to avoid that and you're not interested in feeling that way anymore, this is one of the things that you can do. The middle of the work is when that's the work. It's the work of the work, right? And that's when things get boring. So you have to recognize when you're in that state of, you know what, I need to take a break, right? Pomodoros are great for this, and they can help us do those things and they can help us shift. But sometimes after taking a brain break, or a physical break, we have difficulty shifting back into the work and we have to kind of go back to the negotiation and collaboration part of this. Okay. So the messy middle is where we're going to disguise the middle of the work. When things start to feel, I've been working on this essay for like 2 days and I started it, but I can't finish it. Okay. This happens a lot for people. I started cleaning my room. I got halfway through and then I got like super hyper focused and organized all of my drawers. And now that I've organized all of my drawers, the other half of the room literally is untouched, right? So this half of the room looks great. That half of the room does not look great. When we are in those states, one, try to recognize that you're in the middle of the messy middle, right? And instead of saying go, 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 I'm going to inflict that cortisol until I like make bad choices again. You're going to allow yourself to have a break. And we'll talk about negotiating with your brain coming back from break in a second here. So this is where I've adapted this PDA response, the pervasive demand avoidance response, to kind of fit this particular narrative. And I'm going to give you some resources at the end to just kind of like help you with that, including an amazing podcast that's really good talking about emotional dysregulation. Strongly recommend that you watch this or listen to this podcast. But anyway, I'll get in that in a second. Okay. So the messy middle. So the first thing is that when you start to feel yourself in the middle being like, I can't do this anymore, or I've started this and I've halfway done it, but now I haven't finished it. This is where, like, for those of you that are dreamers and you're like, I like the planning portion and I like I'm an ideas person. I'm just not a follow through person, right? This is where you go, okay, I need to do something with my brain to allow it to have some rest. So brain breaks are great. Go low stim on these. So low stimulation brain breaks. Don't go onto YouTube and start scrolling YouTube shorts or any sort of short form videos, because those are going to be really addicting to our dopamine and they're also addicting to our cortisol. And so that's going to pull you into a feedback loop that's going to be hard for you to pull yourself out of. So try to avoid those. Longer form videos are actually really good. Longer form audio is really good. So podcasts, short story books. I always recommend kids listen to like The Moth is a great example of a podcast to listen to and be like, okay, I'm going to listen to 2 stories from The Moth and then I'm going to do something else, right? So listening to audio while you're doing something else and giving yourself just like a different thing to work on. You can also do physical breaks. So again, sometimes our anxiety is starting, like I call it itchy brain. Sometimes our anxiety starts to go blah, 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 like, and I can't do this anymore. Like I can't even think anymore. I can't do this anymore. Physical breaks are often a really good way to deal with that. And like, again, trying to get yourself to go outside, give yourself an hour to be physical in a different space. Go someplace else that is not the workspace and be physical in a different space, whether that's going for a walk or, going to the gym or, like even if you don't want to go to the gym, like I'm tired, I don't want to go work out. Go sit in a hot tub, go someplace that you can access a different physical sensation. If it's cold outside and it's warm in your house, go outside, right? Do something that is going to be a physical break. Shifting your flow. So if you were previously using Pomodoros and you're like, okay, 25 minutes and stop, 25 minutes and stop, 25 minutes and stop, and now your brain's kind of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Allowing yourself to say, okay, I'm going to do this for an hour, and the only thing that I'm going to accomplish in this hour is like cleaning my sheets. That's it. And if you get more done, fantastic. But the expectation, the flow expectation is more relaxed. We're bringing back the cortisol demand that, you do this now and you do this in a timely manner. We're pulling those things back, right? And then also, and this is where we're going to go a little bit further with this adaptation, being accountable and being metacognitive of what your brain is doing, right? So like thinking about, and like just to give you an example, again, kind of going back to this, we love digitally baffled. So after the break, what do we do?
We completed our break and now must actually do the plan. Remember the plan we
Oh,
made.
yeah. It was a good plan.
What does this plan demand of us, brain?
Well, according to my brain manual, let me just see if I can find the page right. Oh,
Go on, do tell.
the plan requires Effort.
Ah! Effort, you say.
Yes.
This revelation. I find it disgusting.
Okay, so if you are at that point where it's like I've started the thing, but I can't seem to finish the thing, this is where we need to have some negotiation and be metacognitive and ask our brain about accountability. We are not going to demand accountability because accountability should not be a dirty word. Okay. So this is what I often suggest. And by the way, this is a fantastic, I strongly suggest everyone go and buy this book, even if you do not deal with um, pervasive demand avoidance, pathological demand avoidance, PDA, even if you don't deal with that, this is a great tool. This book is a great tool for anyone to use in helping their brain accomplish the task because it shifts the brain, it shifts the framework. Okay. So let's say, for example, that your brain is saying, I need to go pick up those books, right? Putting it in that framework of I need to go pick up these books, or I need to stop, slacking off, or I need to do all of these things. That's a demand. You are saying to your brain, just like you would say to a child, do this or else. And sometimes our brains get tired of hearing that. And so instead, we need to, and I always tell kids that, like, you should try saying this out loud, right? And they're like, you mean talk to yourself out loud? Absolutely. Talk to your brain out loud. Talk to yourself out loud and say instead, I bet I could just go pick up those books and open them. I bet I could just like at least grab my calculator. I bet I could go and make my bed. I bet I could at least put all of my shoes on the shelf. I wonder if it would be possible for me to just to try to write the first sentence. Or for kids that are avoiding writing essays, I bet I could come up with a list of 10 really cool titles for this paper. And one of the things that I used to do to help myself get through is I would name all of my essays song titles. And so, like, when I turned an essay in, if it was like a formal research essay, it would be like a Nirvana title, right? Or like a Ramones title, or like, some obscure title. And then the rest of the essay would somehow like relate back to that title in some way, shape, or form, right? So I bet I could do this. Maybe I could try to focus on my math homework for 15 minutes. What if I just did problems 3, 9, and 12, right? So using verbs that are softer, using words that communicate alternatives and possibilities, and saying those things aloud reframes this. And again, there's a free resource here, but honestly, go buy the book. It's worth it. It's a way for us to not put that cortisol pressure on our brains, right? And that can be monumental. So the last thing is, remember we talked about the bug zapper. So you can go towards you can go towards the light, Carol Ann. You can go towards the light and you can basically say, this is the way that I'm going to get things done is deadline mode, right? I'm just gonna wait till the last minute. I'm gonna, do the thing that does all the doings, right? And that's fine. But you are eventually going to get zapped. Something is going to happen, right? So when we talk about the idea of role playing, again, that declarative language handbook is really helpful, but always have a plan B, right? If you are going to put yourself into work mode, make sure that you know that things are going to go wrong. You're going to forget your computer. You are going to get a phone call in the middle of you cleaning your room, and that phone call is going to take an extra 45 minutes when you thought it was, it was just going to be like a quick phone call and you could get right back to it, right? When those things happen, when these interruptions happen in our flow state, it causes us to be it causes our brains to struggle with getting back into that flow state. Because once the flow state started, when it's interrupted, it's very difficult to get back into it. So if you overly rely on that flow state because you're avoiding the messy middle, then just know that you need to have some sort of a plan B. All right. Humor can be really helpful too. Sometimes, if we can talk to our brains, and like, again, I tell you, say it out loud. It feels very funny, but I promise it works. If you say things like, hey, bud, I know that you don't want to clean the bathroom. It's totally gross. But guess what? If we don't clean the bathroom, then like we're gonna have fuzzy black mold growing in the tub. Like this is, come on, friend. Like let's do this. And then when you say it out loud to your brain's like, all right. And like it's kind of like you're coaching yourself, which to some extent you kind of are. We don't want our states of emotion to be in a perpetual feeling of just like stressed outness, right? And if we don't want that, then that means that we kind of have to talk to our brains and be like, "Hey friend, how you doing?" Because one of the things that's difficult about having ADHD, especially when it comes to dealing with life's demands, is that no one talks about the fact that one of the hardest things for us to deal with is that emotional dysregulation is at the heart of a lot of what we deal with. Emotional dysregulation, when it comes to being able to do the thing, we can have plans, we can have agendas, we can have checklists, we can have timers, we can have all of those things. But if our emotions are dysregulated, then we might get it done, but we're going to get it done in a state that is going to be harmful. And eventually that bug zapper is going to get us. It's eventually going to zap us. And so we have to be careful about overly relying upon that because if we do it too much, then sometimes we feel as though that's the only way I can get things done. If you've ever heard a kid or you yourself have said, I'm really good at working under pressure, I can really only work when it's already the last minute, you are relying on a burnout cycle and you will burn out. You will. And if you're like, I haven't yet, you will. You will. And if you don't believe me, look at all of the research that tracks people with ADHD and the comorbidities that they go through. I, especially if you are a young girl, urge you to look at the information from the Berkeley Girls study. The Berkeley Girls study and what has happened when untreated ADHD in women allows to, it is allowed to fester and becomes eating disorders, becomes anxiety disorders, becomes self-harming behaviors. For boys, it can, I shouldn't genderize, but I'm just using the Berkeley study specifically focused on girls because it's an understudied area when it comes to ADHD. For a lot of kids, let me rephrase that. For a lot of kids, it can manifest as aggression, social impulsivity. It can manifest as, different types of abuse, like so different types of either drug or alcohol abuse. Like there are all sorts of things that can happen that don't look like, oh, it's because I'm in a perpetual state of burnout because it doesn't show up that way. It's not like you put a little sticker on and like, oh, I'm burnt out. Like that's not what your decisions will reflect your burnout cycle. And so you may not have gotten zapped yet, but we want to make sure that we move you away from that area of emotional dysregulation. And no one talks about it. No one talks about well, they are talking about it now. There's more research coming out now. But we need to talk about the fact that if you overly rely on deadline mode, you are going to eventually make some bad choices. This bug zapper is going to zap you. So hopefully this helped. I do coach and I do classes online, kind of teaching this stuff to kids of all ages. So feel free to check it out. And good luck.